Any other conversation about the hangars? Okay. Next item is, I think the city's done an award. Could you kind of fill us in on that, John or Arnold? Or?
So the notice of award was, I got an email on Monday for that, so we're gonna be moving forward with it
Okay.
on that.
Did you say you have had a pre-construction conference, John?
We did have a pre-construction conference for the project, yes.
And so when did they anticipate construction start?
So the contract has started with the understanding that we will give them extensions as needed. They are waiting on materials. They had to, order lights and stuff. There may be some small work out there, intermittent, some pads for a couple of new signs and sign relocations and stuff like that. But the contract won't, or they won't start full construction until they get all their material. They want to be able to start and finish in a reasonable amount of time. And as requested, I conveyed the retroreflective not be removed in that meeting. I also requested that if at all possible, the entire airport not be closed for more than 2 days. They said that they were pretty sure they could get it done in 1, but 2 is what we gave them.
That's for the work at the intersection.
For
correct?
full closure, yes. Obviously, we're gonna have one runway closed
Yeah.
and then swap to the other one. But for full closure, we gave them 2 days. I mean, obviously, we're flexible if something comes up or
Yeah.
whatever, but that's what was discussed.
Did the contractor have any sense of when he might receive his materials, or is the
It didn't seem like he had an idea.
So with supply and demand, like everything else, nothing is in supply. So, but they did commit, we did enter into a contract with them, so they did commit to place the order immediately. And then at that point, that was discussed, we could reach out to them and see if they have a timeframe or, an anticipated delivery on materials. And then maybe we can share that with you all.
construction start date, maybe?
Yes, sir, and that's all pending, of course.
Receipt of
when they get
materials.
the
I
material.
mean, I think we understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe next time we could if y'all could touch base with them and then let us know next meeting.
Okay.
And what would be the length of the contract once construction starts?
Do you remember how many
I don't know what the days were.
Did they give you any kind of indication on that?
So what we shared with them right away, because their concern was right away, if we started, say, on that date and maybe like a week later was the start of their contract, okay? Because they needed to be under contract to be able to order materials. What I stated was to make it right to them, we will grant them an extension right away because, they needed to get into the contract to order materials.
Right.
And then at that point, once they get the materials, we'll revisit it again and then grant them, so many, or an extension of days.
Yeah.
That would be, sufficient to get them in place.
I think it was March 23rd when the contract, the 90 days. So we had to do the extension at that time.
Well,
These are contractual issues, but sometimes a suspension is also appropriate, pending receipt of materials rather than an extension. That way they preserve their contract time and they simply get the project is suspended.
Yeah, that was one option, but they did state that they're probably gonna get in there and do some of the work
Okay,
as soon as possible,
okay.
you know what I mean? So the extent or the
Suspension.
suspension basically really wasn't considered for that reason, so they could still go in
They could
and
start.
perform some of the work.
Do some work.
Yeah, some
Okay.
prep and stuff like
Yeah.
that that's needed without really impacting any lighting or anything like that, any safety to the airport.
Okay. Any other discussion on that item? Next item is status of the garage door and the storage building.
That's complete, start to finish. Working as expected.
It looks nice, John. It really does. And it's working good, so. That's a brand new door, right?
It is,
It was a brand new door professionally installed by, what was it, Overhead Door? I know.
Yes, sir.
It's the one behind the clinic I'm in,
yes,
behind the,
yeah.
yeah.
You
the
still
hangar.
at work?
I am still at work.
Okay. Well, I wanted that on the agenda just to say thank you for getting that done. I know that's been hanging fire for a long time, but I think we're making good progress. Next thing, antenna tower usage fee follow-up. I did some check, I checked that tower. There's 19 antennas hung on that tower.
Really?
19, count them.
Yes, sir. So that was brought to my attention, in regards to, the contract to that being expired. So I met with city manager. We've contacted, Department of, IT, basically, information technology for New Mexico. So, the manager, took it over and he's in negotiation with them to make the contract current and looking at possible increase, cause that contract was, say, what was it, 20 years ago or whatever it was. It is probably due for an increase, and then again, taking into consideration how many antennas are up there and who's utilizing it and all that kind of stuff. So he has been in contact with them already, and again, they're negotiating, a new agreement. And then also, monthly or annual fees on it too.
Well, I just looked on the internet, and even for one that's not nearly as heavily used as this one, it's like $7,000 a month. 7,000 a month, not, I mean,
Really?
I think it'd be prudent to know who all's got antennas hung up there, number one. Who all, because
And that's all, again, in the discussion, because we did talk about, because when I looked at it as well, I'm like, man, that thing's pretty loaded up. And I'm not sure who all's utilizing
Yeah,
it, but.
did we know who's
that's-
using it?
we don't, do we?
Really?
Information technology.
It's not
should
our
be-
antenna,
Yeah.
that's a reality, is that we
Yeah.
rent, or the way the lease was set up is it's a land lease agreement with the state. We deal with them, and probably somewhere within that lease, it gives them the authority to sublease space. That doesn't
I-
directly concern the city, because we have just a land lease agreement with them, as it sits now.
I don't agree with that, John. I read that lease. They were supposed to get city approval before they let other entities use that tower. And they haven't done that unless,
They may have prior to 2003, we don't know that. We don't know how long those entities have been using the tower. So to say that they haven't done it is probably not a fair statement.
well, I've seen them putting towers up there fairly recently, or
Replacing
putting antennas, putting antennas up.
They replace them. They're upgrading, and I don't know if there's a clause in the thing for that. But they do replace them. I know the railroad has an antenna up there, and they always let me know when they're upgrading. State Forestry has one, as well as 911. The dispatch 911 goes through there. So obviously State Police has one. So yeah,
I mean, we're talking 5 or 6 entities at the minimum.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really think this could generate significant revenues if we're compensated kind of in accordance with what's customary.
I agree. And again, the manager has committed to, revising and updating that agreement with them and taking into account all the antennas and how it's being utilized. So I'm sure that'll reflect the new agreement in money wise.
Okay.
So who actually owns the tower?
Yeah, the physical tower, who owns the
The
tower?
state,
It
It's on
is the
Department of IT.
At the state,
Yes, sir. On the
Okay.
state level, yes. New
um,
Mexico Department of IT.
but they have a
Information
land lease agreement with the city to
At the
put that
airport.
tower on city
Well,
property.
currently they don't, cause it expired and it never got renewed.
That's what expired, okay.
So currently there is no agreement today.
And so we're not making anything on that hangar.
Um,
that.
Well, we couldn't say that for sure right now because in that process, we're trying to figure out when they made the last payment. And possibly it might be current at that old amount. It might have been coming income to the city, but we just had that discussion just a few days ago. This is real recent when it was brought to my attention. So we're still gathering all that information. So we really, at this point, I personally don't know. And I talked to the manager this morning and he's still awaiting to get some information back as to from finance and stuff to see if we've been getting that payment in the original contract, which was, at that point, it was set up as an annual payment.
Yes, sir.
And I think it was payable like now, January or February, somewhere in there.
And how much was it, Arnold?
Was it 1,200?
1,200
For a year,
Yes, sir.
1,200 for a year. Substantially less than the number you just threw out.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the ones, and you're right, I've never heard of some that high, but I know a lot of them are generating 2,500, 3,000 a month,
A month.
ones that I know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again,
But when
it's
you
quite a
have,
difference.
when you have that many entities, most of the time, those are per entity.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we counted 4 or 5 that you mentioned. So, I mean, I just think we need to pursue that if we can.
No, we are, we definitely are, yes, sir. And that will, we need to reach into a new agreement, get current and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, no, the manager committed to just take care of it. So he basically took it over. So
Okay.
he's in negotiation with them. He
Mr.
reached
Chair.
out to him this morning to see if they've, concluded anything or had anything as of this morning, and they still hadn't, so.
Yeah, just so that you all know, Mayor and Council did give direction last year to go ahead and renew all contracts. And that directive was given to our city attorney. But now we don't have a city attorney, so Leo's kind of taking over some of
Yes, sir.
that load. But once we get an attorney back on board, all contracts are supposed to be looked at and see if they need to be renewed or if they need to be upgraded or so forth.
Could you get maybe a contract attorney or for negotiating something? I
Well,
mean,
we do have some attorneys available through the municipal league. And we have our own other private attorneys that are working through the city on contract. Yeah, we submit stuff to them weekly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're not without an attorney. I mean, we're out without an attorney that
That's
is a
employed
vacant
by the
position
city.
employed by the city, yes. But, you guys know of anybody, we'll send them our way.
Well, I understand.
Looking for an attorney.
It's, I think everybody's having trouble finding people right now.
Boy, and
Yeah,
how,
for sure.
Well, we do have another tower and that's located at the Harold Lee Dukes Fire Station. And that one, I believe, 20 years ago when we started that, it was $2,500, more or less. That was coming into the fire department
That's monthly?
monthly.
Yeah, that's average.
But
Yeah.
again, I don't know what the contract reads if they can subcontract to other entities or not. Because I know there's already like 7, 8 of them antennas up there. So, I mean, I don't know what the contract specifically says, what they can and not do. We just supplied the property and the,
Yes, sir.
yeah. Okay.
Allow them the use of the property. Any other discussion on that?
I have one other question. In theory, where does that revenue go? That comes from it, whatever it is, if it's still the 1,200 per year. Does that go into the airport budget for the airport to use for
So,
stuff?
technically, any and all revenue produced by the airport supposed to stay in the airport budget for airport use. So, what I've seen in the past is they put it into the general fund, and then from there they'll pay wages or overtime, stuff like that.
And the city keeps track of it.
The finance department's supposed to do that, yes.
Yeah, but that sounded to me, see if I'm incorrect, that if that 1,200 a year were to be increased, there would be no increased funding available to the airport to do new stuff with. They would just debit it against existing salaries or something like that.
Well, that's,
Is that my?
they can do that, yes. And that's all part of getting the airport in the black. So
Yeah.
that we're self-sufficient or self-sustaining.
Oh, I see. I see.
That's the idea of that.
Okay.
But they do budget enough money for us to operate. We get most of what we need.
Okay.
And, you know, with Arnold, that hasn't been a problem. So,
Good.
I mean,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And a lot of times, just for clarification purposes, a lot of times when that funding does come to the general fund, well, if we have a project up at the airport that is 20% due by the city,
Right.
well, that funding
Would be used
basically
for
goes back into that project. So there's not any specific group of monies that comes to 20% of any road or airport or any project or any grant.
Okay.
It just comes overall from the general budget.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Ray Valdez's old Stinson. What can we do about getting that airplane either in a situation where it's generating a hangar rent or get it gone? John? You got any
Okay, so,
idea?
so I reached out to him, tracked him down yesterday with Rebecca's help. She's incredible. If you ever need somebody found, just contact Rebecca. She'll find him right quick. But anyways, yeah, she got me a number to him because I think the contact information you had was no longer,
Yeah.
accurate, right? So, with Rebecca's help, we did, track him down. I was able to have a conversation with him yesterday. So, that being said, his last payment of rental was October of 2018. What he stated is that he stopped paying rent because the door was inoperable. Okay, that was his excuse for not paying rent at that point. Okay, so he's been delinquent since October of 2018, and that's approximately, right, John, when the door broke.
It was.
But nevertheless, John was able, and even him, if he needed to move the plane out or relocate it, he was able to lift the door. It's not like it was just trapped in there. We did have options to remove it at the time, but he didn't give it any consideration, you know. So, that being said, you know, we came up with amount of, he's about $5,600 delinquent, paying the $100 a month during that time frame, all the way up until where we had the increase last January, year ago. We had the increase of 150, so then, you know, of course, it's a little more rent, but he's approximately $5,600 delinquent. Okay, in that conversation, he pretty much thinks that he's not responsible for the whole amount, for the fact, because the door was broken for approximately 2 years. The door got replaced or repaired, actually. We figured somewhere like around January of 22. Right. So, but he was never aware that the door was functioning. I don't think he really cared because he would have reached out during that time frame and said, "Hey, what's the status?" Right? I need to get in there and fix my plane. But he feels that he's not fully responsible for that whole amount. So I went to the city manager with, his, input, Mr. Valdez's input and how he feels. Cause I told him we need to get current and or also remove the plane if you don't have intentions of, continuing to rent from us. So he said, what he was asking for is a possible reduction of what he's delinquent for. And he feels, in his opinion, like half would be fair, okay? I'm not saying if it's right or wrong, but, it's something that I took to the manager and how he feels about it. So, city manager was gonna reach out to the attorney and see how to handle it. Okay, and he did commit to, if we did let him pay half of it and give him like a month to remove the plane. So his intentions are to remove the plane, pretty much is what it sounded like, and not to be renting it.
And pay half of the 5,600?
Yes, sir, which would be $2,800. Yes, sir, and that's what we would.
So do we as a committee have an input for the city manager on that?
Recommendation on,
Yeah, a recommendation, an opinion, an input, whatever you wanna call it. I'll start the discussion. It sounds okay to me. How about you, Rod?
I'm surprised he went with half of that.
Me
That
too.
amount.
Me too.
Yeah,
I
what,
would have
what,
started lower.
Yeah,
well, my concern was the plane was still being housed, it
It
was
was.
being
It was
secure
undercover.
and dry out of the weather and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So he did receive service from the hangar, I mean, it's not
Right.
like it was.
It's not like
out
it
in
was
the-
parked outside.
Right. So I felt that, in my opinion, I think half was even a little bit,
Too
on his-
generous
Too generous on, yeah,
on the city's part.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Is what I thought, but again, I guess if we could recoup something, then. But in this too, what he requested was, he says he can't afford to pay it all up front.
Yeah.
So in that, he's requesting maybe making like $1,000 initial payment and then monthly payments till he pays that off.
Did he say
But
what
he will
his,
make a commitment to get that airplane out of the hangar. Is
He would
that,
make a commitment to remove it within like a month. He said he'd have to remove the wings and basically you could trailer it out.
aren't you getting rid of your collateral?
Huh?
Aren't you getting rid of your collateral?
Yeah, because, John, do you have an input?
I think that if we can get anything out of Ray, at this point, I think it would be a fairly decent, he was getting services,
Yes?
but it was not the full services that the contract said. Whether his plane was operable or not, the hangar
the hangar was?
should have
not-
been what it was when he signed the contract.
Mm,
So I think giving him a little bit of leeway on that, whether 2,800 is fair, is really not up to me. But I think it is fair to give him a reduction for that fact. As far as collateral, I'm not even sure that plane's worth. I mean, quite honestly, I at this point, I'm just happy he's not gonna abandon it there, and then we gotta pay money to clear it and get it out. So I would say that the collateral issue is not null and void. I would say just let him take it, and after the $1,000 payment, we'll start the month or whatever he agrees to, and let him remove it at that time. You know what I mean? And if we get at least that, then we've recouped some of the money. We've at least recouped something, And maybe we can talk him into half of the 2,800 instead of just 1,000. That's negotiable.
Oh, as a
still.
down payment?
Nothing.
on the-
Nothing has been set in stone. It's all in discussion
Right.
with the city manager, so, but I would hate to get stuck with the plane and all that stuff. I would prefer that he take it out. The sooner he's out, the sooner I can put that spot up for rent
Yeah.
and start collecting $150 a month.
yeah, I guess that to me is a big deal. If, whatever we do, we need to get that airplane gone.
Yes, sir. I agree.
And I'm like John, I certainly, there was some diminution of usage, at least from the agreement that, you know, the hangar agreement, he couldn't get out. He didn't, in his case, I'm not sure that was particularly significant, but it's still the fact that that did occur, and I think he's certainly entitled to some adjustment in the rental rates, but I think I'd rather see the city take a hickey and just get that plane gone. And if we only get $500, just get it gone. That's, I mean,
Yeah, it's not generating anything.
Yeah.
that old fuselage and wings, if they're worth $2,500, I'd really be surprised. And that'd be if you got them somewhere where somebody wanted them.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to yank the wings off and get it on trailer. That's what it's gonna take.
Well, I'll take that recommendation to the city manager and, say that you all feel that.
Maybe you guys wanna make a motion of something to, as far as a formal recommendation, or?
To go ahead and proceed on with making a deal with Valdez.
Yeah, and I'm fine without a formal recommendation from us that we vote on. I'm fine with this conversation. Arnold, you take what you just heard and sit down with the city manager and convey that and provide that as an input to the city manager. I would be okay with that.
You're okay to say that we agree with something that's fair to get the job done.
Yeah,
Get the airplane gone.
okay?
Yes, sir. Sounds like a good plan.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. Any other comments on that issue? Finally, tree removal and cleanup around the hangars. All I can do is say thank you, thank you, thank you. It looks so nice, gentlemen.
Yes.
It really,
Yeah.
really does. I just, it had looked pretty junky for a long, long time. And cleaning out those old trees and hauling them off and like we talked this morning, there's still a few things left, but boy, it looks so much better. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
It is cleaned up.
It
Yes.
really
Nice,
is
I know,
sharp.
yeah.
They-
I've been kinda gone for a bit and voila.
It looks great.
Nice.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Agreed.
You're welcome. I agree. We drove out there when I first started and it did look pretty run down, it had been, those trees had been let go for a little bit too long and growing up against the foundation of that building, granted it's an old building and all that, but those big Chinese elms have gotten pretty good size already and, there's a lot of effort from the crew, I'll be sure and
Tell them
Thank
we
you for
appreciate
it.
it.
Yeah,
That's
I
all we
agree.
can really do is say thank you, but we do
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
It just, and the facility looks so much better.
It looks cleaner, yes.
Yes, sir. We still lack a little bit, it'll mostly be like, say, 90% done today. We're gonna try and remove the two vehicles that are still out there, today, if not probably tomorrow. And then, we got some, piles of gravel that I wanna get with John and see where he can utilize them and clean that area up as well. And just finish it up. And the intent of this, now they can go in there and perform their maintenance, mowing and whatnot, and keeping those buildings mowed down a lot easier, right, John?
Yeah.
Without
Mhm.
having all those debris and, there was an old tower out there that we cut up and hauled out, different kinds of metals, tanks. There was a lot of stuff there, fence posts, that were hauled out today. We still have some metal posts that have concrete attached to them. We're gonna take the jackhammer and break them out and get rid of them as well. But I think, for around the hangars and around that area there, we should have it completely done here in the next, week.
It looks great.
It does.
Thank you.
It does.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Well, that's all the items that we have on the agenda, gentlemen. Is there anything else that we need to discuss at this meeting?
One thing that has crossed my mind about, we've got the water situation out there. Have anybody ever thought about rainwater collection tanks?
I actually had made the proposal when we did the SRE building to collect the water off of that for, really not for drinking water,
Not for
obviously,
drinking, but just
yeah.
water.
And at that time, there was no interest in it, so, and I've not brought it up since.
I mean, there's a lot of roof space there that would fill up a 6,000 gallon tank on each one of those buildings in a heartbeat. It's surprising how much water you can get. You know, just one thing that I thought about that might help somewhat with the water situation.
I'll look into it again and see
Yeah,
if I
and
can come
I'll
up with
help you
something.
too, John, and do that. I collected on my house. I've got 6,000 gallons worth of water I'll collect. And I don't have that much roof space, and you'd be surprised how often they fill up.
I do the same at the house. I
Yeah.
got 4 2,500 gallon tanks. I got like 10,000
Yeah, you got more than I do.
that I run, so
And
I can look into
they
that.
do, they do a lot, and, it seems like it's hard to get water up there from the city, and
Mhm.
could be of use, I would think.
Well, moving forward, we're really gonna definitely have to look into getting, city water out there if, there's talk of doing a fire academy and different things out there, but, I think moving forward, one of the first things that we need to really concentrate on is, continuing the city water and getting it out to the airport really is where we need to go with that.
But that may be a while.
Well, I've always been concerned about not only the airport, but also the wastewater department that's out there. If you were hauling sludge and you couldn't even wash your hands, you know what those guys do. They gotta move those hoses, and
Mm-hmm.
they can't wash their hands. There's nothing. And I just don't understand why the water department or wastewater department wouldn't be our ally in trying to get, if it's not a 6-inch line, an 1.5 inches, something that could serve at least the domestic, water, for that department. I mean, if it was my employees, I'd want them to be able to wash their hands. I'll just say that. And I feel like that's reasonable.
And I agree, having a facility out there that has, a water source, because if you get splashed on your face, your eye or something, I think it would be good to have a place to wash off other than running all the way to the airport, or to John's facility to wash up. But I think it's really something that we really do need to move forward with and get some water
It's
out
just
there.
another option to look at is some rainwater collection. That I don't think it wouldn't be too hard to set up collecting, the gutters in a tank.
Yeah.
But then you gotta move it.
Yeah, then you gotta pump it.
Yeah, you gotta move it somehow, but at least it would be some water, out there.
So
Thank
we'll
you.
put it on the agenda for
We'll
next time?
discuss it next time.
All right,
Okay.
cool.
Well, with that, gentlemen, I guess I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I will second that.
Motion for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for attending the meeting. Appreciate you
Yep.
being here.